My name is Bosch. I'm Deputy Director at Cape Mental Health. I was employed about 21 years ago as a social worker. So I've done intake services and then I went into the fieldwork services. And then I got interested in project management and I did that for a couple of years, and last year I applied for the position of Deputy Director. And I'm responsible mostly for Department of Social Development funded services within Cape Mental Health, which includes our social work services, our PR and communication services, our sexual abuse victim empowerment services. Those are the projects I'm directly responsible for. Okay, I think in terms of mental health, I think often people think that when we talk about mental health, they think it's got to do with, having a mental illness like schizophrenia or bipolar or whatever, but it's actually not just the absence of a mental illness. It's also about how you live your life, how you look at things, how you view challenges within life. And often people can have a very negative view of whenever something comes their way. And so for challenges, they might just fall apart because it's too much and not able to cope. And so in terms of being mentally healthy, we say that, you've got to be very resilient, and it's really looking at how do you develop that resilience in terms of life, because life has become extremely difficult. There's lots of challenges, lots of difficulties every day. And so it's important the manner in which you approach that in a very positive way, because only by doing that you're able to face those challenges. In terms of mental illness, the term that we use at the moment is psychosocial disabilities. And it's really about those would be your identified psychosocial disabilities, it's schizophrenia, bipolar, depression, those are the more common ones. We're finding that a lot of people are presenting with anxiety, and it's simply because they're not able to face life challenges, that it becomes so difficult. And often people just need one or two contacts where they just need to come and ventilate and just speak about what they're facing on a daily basis. I think stigma is one of the biggest problems that we face within our sector. Our clients with intellectual disability as well as psychosocial disabilities, they often do not want to disclose within their families, within their communities, because then they then deem as being different than anybody else within the community. I don't think there's a high regard for people with disabilities, never mind mental disabilities within communities. They're often called derogatory names, and so it's extremely difficult. And so the huge challenge for people with a mental health issue often is just facing the stigma. And because the stigma exists, it's very difficult for them to access services because they're ashamed of accessing those services. They're not able to access employment because opportunities are limited, but they're also ashamed to access services that could lead to employment. If there's a sexual abuse that has happened to them, they're often scared to go to the police station because they're scared people are going to make fun of them. So stigma is one of the biggest problems that we have within our sector. The ones that we often work with would be anxiety disorder. We're finding that a lot more people are coming in with simple anxiety disorder. And it's probably because that our lifestyles have become so hectic. It's become so challenging to live on a daily basis. We've got financial constraints, we've got a lot of stuff happening, violence, all of those kinds of, and it contributes to people experiencing a lot of anxiety. Then we see a lot of people with schizophrenia, we see a lot of people with depression, as well as bipolar mood disorder. Those are the most common ones that we see within our organization. I think it's important to know, like schizophrenia, there's got to be certain things that comes into play, whether it's the hallucinations or delusions or whatever. So each and everyone has got their own symptoms. But I think often people sort of know that there's something happening within them. It's also something that has got to be present, like in terms of any psychosocial disability. It normally develops sort of early adulthood, but also it's a change from what the person has been previously. So it cannot be there since childhood. It normally comes into play sort of in their late teens. That's when they start presenting with certain symptoms. So for each one, there's different ones, and I think it's important to note that we shouldn't be sort of diagnosing ourselves, because often people say, oh, they've got schizophrenia, or oh, they're bipolar, because they've heard these terms. It's important to rather seek the correct help, to access either community health service within your community, or to come to Cape Mental Health, and we would be able to assist in referring you for an assessment. It's quite difficult to say. A lot of things could trigger it. It could be childhood trauma, it could be sexual abuse within childhood, it could be anything. But also we see a lot of people that just come and they present with issues. They might have had a normal childhood, everything could have been absolutely okay, and then something happens to make them feel unhappy about life. So I think, yes, sometimes it could be that there's some genetic thing happening, that this is the reason why the person is predisposed to it. But at the end of the day, we cannot say, oh, if you've got this, then definitely you're going to develop, schizophrenia or whatever. I think it's important to note that it can happen to anybody. There are some triggers within all of us. And it just could be that something is triggered within you. So therefore, it's very important. The resilience part of the mental health issue is extremely important, because otherwise, something that might have not been that traumatic or traumatic, you would continue to relook at it and focus on it, and this eventually determines your mental state. So I think it's important that we need to be aware of our mental health. It should be our first priority. In order for us to be able to care for other people, our mental health should be first. So it's important that you must take care of it, and that you must do everything to protect it also. I think in terms of social media, I think it's got an important role to play in terms of doing away with the stigma. And we've tried in terms of our social media campaigns to really look at, how can you do away with the stigma. But I think it can also contribute to it. If you look at some of the things that are going around on social media, very often people are making fun of people with mental health issues. The names people are called, that can become something that targets you as an individual, and therefore it can become a mental health issue. We've seen it in the past also, where social media has been instrumental in really the impact it's had on individuals. We've seen it with the young girl that was sent pornographic photos of her to friends, and eventually it was all over the school. So at the end of the day, it impacts on that person's mental health. And so I think it's important that we need to use social media in the correct way. We need to be able to educate people. I think it's a good medium to be able to access, because it's a medium that most people have got access to, and be able to promote our issues also through social media. We work in predominantly the Cape Town area, and people are able to phone into our offices, make an appointment with our intake officer, and just discuss what is happening. So if it is that you're feeling a lot of anxiety about certain things, if you're feeling something is wrong, you can come in and we can do an assessment, and we can then determine, whether it really justifies a referral to a community health centre, or we can even send it to a private psychologist for an assessment. And then we're able to provide counselling services to people with intellectual disabilities as well as psychosocial disabilities. And we're able to educate people about, what is happening. We're able to provide more insight, and we're able to say to them, but these are the important parts in terms of your treatment that you have to follow. To reach out, I think that for me is the most important part, because it's often you feel quite isolated, you feel like you're the only person experiencing this, and so a lot of time is spent by yourself, just going things through your mind over and over and over again. So I think it's very important that you reach out for help, whether it is to a friend who might be able to get you the help that you need, or whether you can come to Cape Mental Health and be able to assist you. But the most important part is to reach out for help, because help is available.